Sit down. Sit down. You're not going anywhere.
The morning show's over, but they're still talking.
Lord have mercy.
It's Liz and Scotty's Poddy.
Elizabeth, you ready to talk about Yellowstone?
Let's do it.
It was Yellowstone Season 5, Episode 11, titled 353, which we come to find out, maybe they even said it a couple of episodes ago, but that is the exact time that John Dutton was killed in the governor's mansion. And we finally got to see a little bit about how that happened. The bad guys getting in and how they went about it, trying to make it look like a suicide and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it was one of those episodes, too, where we finally got to see the past kind of mesh into where we are in the future with the episodes. So that was a little bit nicer. But, yeah, that was intense. I had to look away a couple of times during the bad guys getting into the governor's mansion. I didn't want to see the shot being fired.
Well, and getting to see them do that kind of comes up again later because Casey's kind of smelled a skunk the whole time anyway. He gets in with the medical examiner, which we'll get to a little bit later, and some of that stuff starts to make a little bit more sense. I will complain here early.
Oh, okay.
Beth getting the cold chill at 3:53 in the morning, the moment when John Dutton dies. That was one of those, okay, come on. Really? We're going to do that now? Maybe that turns into something else. I got thinking, don't jump the gun too much, but I just thought, that's a little much. Am I over the top there, or are you?
I would disagree slightly.
Okay.
I didn't think it was too much. I felt like the pain of a daughter realizing something has happened to one of her loved ones.
Yeah.
And I think that shows just how connected her and John really were. So
I think it's what it was intended to show, but I thought a little over the top, but I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Man, let me tell you though, that scene where Beth is in her car, she's driving late at night. They've already had a conversation, her and Rip, about how she needs to just pull over and go to sleep somewhere. I thought for sure she was going to hit something on those roads.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we know Beth is okay because we've seen, the future, but Lord, is she going to hit that cow that they kind of foreshadowed in the last episode?
Right.
But thankfully, no, she was fine.
She got through unscathed.
Yes.
And then we jump to what I think is going to be pretty important in part of this episode, and that's the whole political drama surrounding John Dutton's death. And Jamie is there with the other senators, and he meets the guy who's going to become the governor, and he's there with Linnell, Senator Perry. I've been a little interested to know where she was going to fit into all this. We talked about her a little bit the last episode when she was kind of consoling Jamie. So I always thought she was a good character and played it very well and trying to be a bit of a foil for John, even though obviously having close feelings for him.
I think she's always shown to have her head on straight. Like, she ultimately wants what's best for the state of Montana.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't care if that doesn't necessarily jive with what the Duttons want or what the rest of the government wants.
Right.
It's just what is best for the state of Montana.
And she's not afraid of Beth either.
Correct.
Which I've always kind of liked. But she stood up and she was smelling the rat between Jamie and that new governor. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where she fits then in there along with John Dutton's assistant.
Yeah.
Who was still around. You pointed that out. That was an interesting little turn.
Yeah, I've always really liked her. She just seems like she respects John Dutton a lot. And we got to see her in the very first episode. She was there when news was coming out that John was dead, and she was visibly upset. But this go around, she's just kind of in the Capitol, not really knowing what her next move is going to be, where her next position is. And the governor was, open about her coming on as chief of staff for him.
Right.
But then as that conversation goes and she figures out that he doesn't really stand with what John Dutton was wanting to do as governor, she quickly says, thank you, but no thank you, and runs after the senator. And I really liked that conversation with the senator. It shows how smart the senator is. Just her pointing out that at this moment, technically, she is unemployed, and whatever she just heard in that room, she can go spill those secrets to whoever she wants because she's not technically bound to anybody.
Yeah, she's not under any confidentiality agreements or anything. So I was thinking, okay, so who does she go tell?
Yeah.
And you were thinking probably Beth, but
yeah. That's ultimately who I would think.
She's sort of a minor character that just kind of came along the last couple episodes, but she's still there, so she's going to play a part somehow.
Yes.
it'll be interesting to see how she plays the part. Mm-hmm. And then Casey starts getting involved with the investigation of John Dutton's death because, like Beth, he never believed it. He didn't necessarily think Jamie was involved, but he never thought it was a suicide.
Right. I ultimately thought this episode should have been titled Casey, because throughout the entire episode, Casey was just such a good character to watch. Yeah. Again, he went through all of the emotions that you're wanting to see from Beth, from Jamie, but ultimately Casey's the one that's like, struggling with the good, the bad. Do we completely write off my brother that I've grown up with to avenge my father's death?
He's becoming my favorite character and the most interesting character. Although I will say, what did you think about the scene early on where they're carrying the stuff into the house and they're moving in and straighten the picture? I don't know if they were setting up, this is what Casey wants. He's going to have to deal with this other stuff later. This was like the warm family, cute.
Yeah.
Don't touch that picture. That's that side of Casey, so that it really contrasts what we're probably going to see, what we feel like we're going to see from Casey in the next couple of episodes.
I 100% agree. I think that just showed the levity that the show can have. Yeah. And then also just the multiple sides of Casey, and he's able to turn off the side where he is a killer and he can really just focus on his wife and his son when he's in their home together.
And I'm so happy that Casey went to see Jamie.
Yeah.
Even though Beth was trying to talk him out of it, because I want cooler heads to prevail. So I wanted Casey to go do it. And as you mentioned, he was so great in that scene, dealing with the secretary and then throwing Jamie across the desk and all of that. But here's where Liz and I are torn is not the right word, but Jamie, who we've talked about, just cowers in front of Beth so much. Jamie's reaction to Casey, it looked like it was working on Casey and it was working on me too.
Yes.
It looks, I believe 100% that Jamie believed all of those things that he said. It didn't look like he was making things up. Casey throws him across the desk and he's not as scared of Casey as he is of Beth.
Yeah. No, he was able to talk to Casey in the most level-headed way possible and explain to him, like, you know what, I am ultimately trying to fight for this ranch too.
And what am I going to get out of it? I'm out of the will. Yes. There's nothing for me here.
Yes. And again, Casey's reaction was absolutely fantastic because he came into that room so hot and Jamie was able to break him down a little bit. Yeah. And you see tears in Casey's eyes by the time that he leaves. And like you said, you see Casey believing everything that Jamie has to say.
Or at least having second thoughts about it.
Yes.
Maybe, or realizing the truth is probably in the middle between Jamie and Beth somewhere. Uh-huh. Yeah, and that was a great line, too, about Jamie when he says, I love you. I wouldn't do anything to hurt you. And Casey says, I hope you're right for your case and for mine.
Yes.
Because he's thinking about what he might have to do if he finds out the other way. Yeah, Casey's so good.
Yeah, he's so good. You just constantly see the demon and the angel on his shoulders and the way that he tries to make both of them happy. Right. I don't know.
Yeah. And watching him kind of dig into the investigation and his back and forth with the medical examiner was really, really good. And he came in a little strong, but they kind of work it out as they work through it. And Sona, I loved it when she said at the end he was walking out, and she said, "Hey, I'm really sorry I missed it." And as you said, great line. He turns around and said, "You were supposed to miss it." So.
I think I don't give Casey enough credit throughout watching this show because you do realize in this episode how smart Casey really is.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of see him as, one of the tough sons of John Dutton. And without John being there, I think we get to see Casey really, really shining. But going back to the medical examination, I told you earlier, I just thought that was a smidge on the corny side. I liked it all the way up until they're examining John's body and she's talking to Casey about where points of contact might be if he was, taken over by a few men. And all of a sudden she sees the bruising and it just seemed like, okay, and you didn't spot this before? You didn't raise a red flag with this beforehand? I just thought that was a little less believable than the rest of it. But other than that, I thought it was a good scene.
Yeah. As she said, when it looks so obvious like a suicide, they don't look for the other things. But as Casey said, another great Casey line, what on that desk is more important than the death of the governor of the
Yes.
state of Montana? That was really good, and so they got into it a little bit. And then the big news is that the case gets opened back up, and it is ruled a homicide, at least by the detectives. And so that stirs up the hornet's nest. And it's funny because at that point, I even wrote myself a little note. Okay, is Jamie going to have to kill his girlfriend, Sarah Atwood, because she's the only one that knows that Jamie's involved? So then I'm wondering, okay, does Jamie have it in him to kill her? Now, knowing what we know about the end of the episode, he doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of like about the end. I mean, this was a longer episode. It was an hour and 20 minutes, and it really picks up near the end when the news is broadcasting the fact that they're opening this case back up, and you see the killers, the head henchmen of them all, notice it on the screen, and you instantly see him pick up his phone, and it's like, okay, that can't be good.
Yeah.
And then you see Sarah at the restaurant noticing it as well, and that is when she starts to unravel just a smidge.
When the bad guy grabs his phone, I started thinking, okay, I'm not sure Sarah's going to make it through this. As we now know at the end of the episode, she did not. Let's go ahead and jump to the end of it, and then a couple of things we'll back up on. But first of all, I did, when she's driving away and she and Jamie are on the phone, there is a connection there. They do care about one another. It's not all purely business. And I had kind of, the way she had reacted the last couple of episodes, I thought she was just in it for the money or whatever. But when she's in the car right before she gets shot, I feel like she was really kind of feeling it with Jamie there a little bit. And there were some feelings there, I think.
Yes. Yeah, she's so tough that you saw a couple little cracks in there, especially when she makes the comment of that didn't take long, and she almost looks relieved. She stops her car to talk to him to make sure that all of her attention is on that conversation. And you see a smidge of sweetness come through her. But man, I knew the second she stops her car and you see from her window another call pull up, I instantly said, she's done. That's it.
I had the feeling earlier in the episode, but as you said, when you can see through that back window, another car pulling up,
Yeah.
That's it. She's not going to be in the next episode. So.
Mm-hmm. And of course, she was killed, and so many people have thoughts on it. Kim said, Yellowstone in all caps. Wow, I did not see that end coming, which we completely agreed with her.
I thought that Sarah and Beth were going to have some battles down the line, and so that did surprise me as well.
Yeah, and I'm a smidge disappointed about it. And it's funny because I was talking to another listener, Julie, about the same situation. She said it was also surprising, but she was kind of happy to see her go. And when I told her that we were kind of hoping that Beth and her would duke it out a smidge, Julie said, okay, I did tell my husband I was looking forward to Beth beating the crap out of her, but her smug little face when the shooter, asked, are you Sarah Atwood? And then bam, I'm sure Beth will be disappointed because she really should have suffered more during the dying process, but that was just a little too fast. Then she goes on to say, that actress is so good at playing that role. I don't ever want to see her in anything else because I will still hate her.
Yeah, that's true. Her name was Julie?
Yes,
Julie?
The listener, Julie.
Julie, thank you for that comment. And I guess let's just go ahead and move on to the previews for the next episode. This I don't know that I saw coming, but Casey is talking about in the previews that the cops are starting to circle around Jamie. And I don't know that I thought he would come out of it unscathed, but I just had not, at least in my mind, moved that far forward, that some of the signs are starting to point to him. And of course, we can see some of those signs, but the cops haven't seen them yet.
Yeah.
But apparently they're going to start seeing some stuff, and all of a sudden it's going to be, okay, maybe this all comes down to, does Jamie unravel or does Jamie not unravel? You know what I mean?
Do you feel a smidge bad for Jamie?
Yes, I do. I really do.
Yeah.
I always have. He hasn't always made the greatest decisions.
And ultimately, at least from our perspective as of right now, he really did not expect his girlfriend to go and hire hitmen to kill his father.
Correct.
He really had no part in this whatsoever. Him saying some offhanded comment, he never thought it would be brought to fruition. So I do feel bad. He's like, he got himself in such a mess, and I don't think necessarily he meant to.
Right. I'm with you. So it'll be interesting to see. And then if we go back a little bit, About the time that I was saying to myself, okay, here's another episode, and we haven't seen Chief Rainwater much, he pulls up. And that was a really good scene with the chief and Beth, and them talking about John and the chief respecting each other, and it started creeping into my mind. Okay, this would be a pretty formidable duo right here, Beth and Chief Rainwater moving forward. Whether or not they can save the ranch, Chief Rainwater tells Beth that's always been the plan. Yes, your father and I disagreed. I always wanted to get the ranch, but sadly now I know that will never happen. And that's like Beth saying something's never going to happen. They're so smart. They know 12 moves ahead.
Yes.
Every single thing that could happen has been exhausted. And so when he says, I know that will never happen, I think, okay, then that probably will never happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would be fun to see Rainwater and Beth kind of get together and make life miserable for some of the other boardroom types and the government types and the federal people that he was talking about.
Yeah, here I am still a dreamer. I'm like, surely they can come up with some kind of a scenario where they can either save the ranch or sell off just a little bit of it to hold them together. But as Beth said, she's a realist and she knows that's not going to happen. So it's all about either prolonging the death or coming up with a different solution.
It will be interesting to see what those two can come up with, I guess, is what, because you feel like it's going to be something.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's everybody lives happily ever after on the ranch, that's probably not going to be it.
I kind of hope so.
Yeah. And then the other thing that stood out was when Casey and Mo went off to talk a little bit about his vision and that sort of thing. And Mo's been such a great character too. Quiet and not in a lot of major scenes, but the ones that he's in, they're always really good. So he and Casey are talking about the vision. And the thing that jumped out to me and probably everyone else too is when he said, when that vision comes and the choice is to be made, it will be an easy choice to make. And so in my mind, I'm going, okay, what's the choice going to be? Because it sounds like it's going to be so obvious that we'll all see it coming.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think ahead going, okay, is the choice going to be between Jamie and Beth? Is it going to be between his family and something else? Because he's going to choose his family over anything else that might come. That almost seems too easy too, and not really that dramatic. So I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's going to be something that we see coming. That whatever that is, because Mo said, you see the choice and you'll laugh at yourself because it's going to be such an easy choice to make. Mm-hmm. I found that interesting.
I know. I am still questioning over here how in the world they're going to wrap it up in 3 more episodes. Yep. I just don't see how it's going to be made possible. Maybe that last episode is like 2 hours or 3 hours long, but there's just so many missing pieces that we're going to need within the next 3 episodes.
Or maybe they'll do it like The Sopranos and just right in the middle, just cut to black and that's the end of it.
I didn't know that's what happened at The Sopranos.
I just ruined The Sopranos for you, didn't I?
I knew that.
Oh, okay.
That's a cultural phenomenon, I've heard.
All right, good. All right, so that's pretty much it. Next week should be interesting again. The cops circling in on Jamie. Liz wants to know whose car does Casey jump into when he's got the hood on. My bet was maybe it was Jamie.
And see, I think it's the hitman, but you've maybe pushed me away from that theory because you were like, surely Casey wouldn't show all of his cards to the hitman, but...
Well, and Casey knows how dangerous Casey knows how dangerous the hitman are. Those guys are serious enough, and he knows how serious they are. He's been in that world that he's not going to sneak up on them to give them a warning because he knows that they don't sneak up on people to give them warnings either, That's why I think it's going to be somebody like Jamie or somebody else, because he says something along the lines of, I know the whole story. So.
And see, this is where I also wish that we could have gotten maybe a spin-off episode or 2 solely about this hitman company, because I want to know more.
Yeah.
How did they get these people? How did they formulate this company? How do people know where to go? Like, all of these questions I want answered, and I know that not all of them will be answered, but I do hope that they reap some of the sorrow that they've sowed.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we've all got to go back to Luke Grimes, who plays Casey, in an interview said, I think Yellowstone fans will be happy how it ends. And so I keep thinking about that, thinking, okay, they're not going to leave a bunch of things hanging. At least I'm hoping so, since he said that.
Yeah.
Of course, he may think that the fans want things to be left hanging, so who knows?
Exactly.
All right, so there it is, episode number 11. How many? 3 left? 3 episodes left,
I think, yeah.
All right, 3 episodes left. As always, you have thoughts. You think we're full of it. We'd love to hear you tell us. You can text any time of day, night or day, and we'll get it when we get in here to the studio. 800-455-5257. You can always reach out on Facebook, the Liz and Scotty Facebook page. Shoot us a message there. And as always, thank you for taking time to hear us ramble about Yellowstone on Liz and Scotty's Poddy.
We would love it if you downloaded the Clear 99 app. That way you can get the podcast wherever you go. But we're also available on basically every single streaming service you got. So whether that be Google, Spotify, YouTube, we're all there, and we would love for you to check out more episodes.
Just search for Clear 99 On Demand, and as always, we're right there in the On Demand section too at clear99.com. Boy, I got Liz fired up here for a minute before we turn the microphones on. That's always kind of fun to see. The people who stand up immediately when the plane reaches the gate.
And it drives me up an ever-loving wall. Sit down. Sit down. You're not going anywhere. Quit. You're making it longer for everybody else. Lord have mercy. Thank you, and good night.
Did I tell you? Did I tell you we got Liz fired up? Huh?